Challenges of political modernization approach. What are the challenges to the political modernization approach? See, the first challenge, which is the most important and the most fearsome criticism of the political modernization approach, is that it predicts a linear path to modernization, and those who are not following this path, they are not moving towards modernization. So this aspect that you have to follow this linear path, and this path has been followed by the Western world. So this idea that you have to follow a linear path, this is a idea which is ethnocentric. So you are looking at things from your own experience and how you have grown, and you're projecting it as something which is universal. And so the developing countries should rather go for more industrialization, should open up their economies, should go for more corporatism, should go for more specialized and structured, specialized and differentiated structures. Your country should move in that direction only. So this is the first and the most important criticism, a linear path to modernization. So if you are not following this, then probably they'll assess you that you are not democratic in true sense. They'll provide a value judgment that you are not democratic in true sense, and that is what is problematic to us. Okay, so this is the first criticism, one of the most important criticisms. Let me open the PDF, the second draft of the PDF, the second draft has been uploaded. Okay, so from there I am taking, and यहाँ पर और क्या था? Let me take you there. देखो, this PDF reading is very important for you because I'm taking all these things from major texts and some journals, so you don't have to read any book, but you'll have to go for reading of this. ठीक है? तुम ये कहो सर ये भी नहीं पढ़ना, इतना भी नहीं पढ़ना, फिर मजा नहीं आएगा. इतनी bare minimum reading तो करनी पड़ेगी. And again, everything need not be remembered here. बस read कर लो. बाकी तो मैं तुमको डिक्टेशन में जो करवा रहा हूँ वो याद रखना सारा कुछ. Okay, the critique. So first is the critique of ethnocentrism and Western bias. This is the most frequent and powerful criticism. Critics argue that the approach assumed that all countries must follow a single linear and irreversible path towards development, with Western liberal democratic industrialized state being the only end goal or model. So this is ethnocentric, first. Second, first let me talk about this. The second criticism has come from the dependency school, and we are already aware about the dependency school. What is the dependency school talking about? The dependency school talks about how the modernization, which is projected as something which is a universal model and every country should follow it, is basically an unequal exchange which is leading to the development of underdevelopment in the third world countries. Development of underdevelopment. I'm talking about the views of A.G. Frank, Franks Fanon, Cardoso, or Samir Amin, the ones which are there in the post-colonial Marxist theory of state. Wahi dependency school hai, which came up in the 1970s, and they are saying that modernization approach is essentially promoting development of underdevelopment in the third world countries. So you look at the third world countries, they are peripheries. And they have a relationship with the core, which is an unequal exchange. The core provides the finished goods, and the core takes advantage of the markets of the peripheries, whereas the peripheries, they provide raw material, they provide labor, and may get some outdated technology also. But this exchange is unequal, which is ensuring that the core continues to grow and the peripheries, they remain underdeveloped. So the dependency school talks about, they criticize the modernization approach. They are saying that this is a highly problematic approach. Okay, so dependency school. Second criticism. The third criticism comes from Samuel P. Huntington's idea of political decay. Now, what is this idea of political decay? The idea of political decay basically says that when you look at the modernization theory, modernization says that the more modernized you are, the more development will happen, and eventually you will have much higher per capita incomes, and that is going to lead to more prosperity, just like it has happened in the Western world. Here, what is the problem? Samuel Huntington, he is introducing a new framework. He says economic development and political development do not always move together. When a society modernizes economically, how will a society modernize economically? Urbanization, modern education, new jobs, technology, then the people's expectation rise very quickly. Something which you see in metropolitan areas. So people, they have largely secular, I won't say largely, but people, they have started adopting secular identities. People, they are living in urban areas. People, they are, let's say, there is this shift towards the service sector or the tertiary sector of the economy. And you have technology also, the adoption of technology and the tech-based infrastructure, text-based jobs, whatever be the case, this is something which is there. So distinctly different from the rural life. This is where economy has modernized, although there are pockets of modernization in India. And in India, we generally classify India as a country which has both the mode of production, capitalist as well as the feudal mode of production. The more feudal mode of production is actually going away, and more capitalist mode of production is replacing it. But still, we have this both modes of production present. Now, in this, the economy has moved forward. So the people's expectations, they rise from the political system also. And this is where he says, but the political institutions, whether it is the parliament, the courts, the bureaucracy, the parties, they often fail to grow at the same speed. So the disconnect happens between the growth of economy versus the growth of political institutions. This creates a gap. People's rising demands are greater than the government's ability to handle them. And if the government cannot handle it, then it will lead to instability. When political institutions are too weak to manage the new demands, the result is political instability, protests, riots, breakdown of order, coups, or revolution. Therefore, Huntington argued it is better to have a strong, stable, authoritarian system than a weak, unstable democracy. So, what is Huntington saying? He's saying the more modernized your economy is, as compared to your political modernization, this is going to create a problem. People's expectations are much higher. They are going to revolt, they are going to protest, and the institutions can't handle it. This will lead to a much weaker democracy. Okay, weak democracy. So the idea is, instead of weak democracy, have rather strong authoritarian regimes. Don't go for the same modernization which the West has gone through. It might not be as fruitful for you. So this is a new framework of understanding. There's a different framework of understanding altogether. Samuel P. Huntington, when he's talking about this. So new framework, that's it. You're able to explain a lot of these activities in fragile democracies. Won't be correct to classify India as a part of fragile democracy, but yeah, we have some institutions which have not adapted to that extent. For example, the judiciary is lacking behind, and when it comes to judiciary, we have this problem that the appointment process still needs a lot of reforms. And judicial accountability, therefore, is something which we are not able to ensure. And that can not only lead to delay in dispensation of justice, but it can also create problems for, let's say, mm, the overall uh, jurisprudence. Aajkal jurisprudence around bails is in a lot of debate around how Umar Khalid is not being provided bail. So the jurisprudence aspect also is going to uh, see some kind of a lag, and that's how a country suffers. Similarly, police is not if sensitized enough. Then police, instead of being the savior, is going to play the role which is intimidating in nature, and that is a problem to us. This way of doing things is problematic to us. The political institutions, they are not growing. The parliament, it is not able to have, let's say, uh, the parliament is not able to work without disruptions, and rather the legislative work which is done in parliament is very less, and more of ordinances are passed instead of bills being deliberated on the floor of the house, and that's a casualty of the fact that parliament is not able to function. So my institutions are weaker, but the demands are greater, leads to weak democracy. Don't go for that. uh, now how it is relating to the modernization theory, because modernization theory is saying the more and more economically modernized you will happen, the more and more, let's say, you will move towards capitalism, industrialization, the more you're moving towards political modernization, and the more you will become like Western democracies, which are much more stable and mature. But that's not the case. Okay. And also, I'll give an example here to substantiate this point. When we see the growth of countries like South Korea, Singapore, China, which have not abided by the same value system of the West, it also tells me that modernization can happen without following that path also. And modernization theory probably then is a disguise for promoting the Western way. Okay, capitalist way, or promoting Western capitalist way. Okay, that is what is the political modernization approach then. So I look at it from this perspective. Now, there is some flickering going on. एक मिनट दो मुझे ठीक करने की कोशिश करता हूँ इसको भी. Okay, done. So these are the challenges to the political modernization approach. 3 challenges we have to remember. Now let's move forward. Now we have the next topic. The next topic is the political sociology approach and the political economy approach. A lot of questions, they come from these two approaches in the examination, and I would say they are very, very important. So the major questions that have come from either the systems approach or the structural functional approach or the political sociology or the political economy. Okay, so 4 things which are mentioned in the syllabus. Most of the questions have been from this side only. We have not seen political modernization or political culture question, but we have still done it. We are prepared for the case if they ask. Okay. Now, political sociology and political economy are very, very easy approaches, and we already have studied these kinds of approaches in our understanding of paper 1. What is this approach all about? When we talk about political sociology, then we have politics and society. Okay. And when politics impacts society and society impacts politics, such that there is an interdependence and a correlation between politics and society, when we want to study this, that is when the political sociology approach will come into picture. Okay. So, when I look at the role of caste in Indian politics, that's basically political sociology at work. When I say politicization of caste or casteization of politics, or if I say role of religion in politics, that is nothing but political sociology approach being used. If the Marxists, they are saying that the economic system impacts the political system, that's political sociology and political economy at play. More so political economy, less so political sociology. But हम political sociology में भी उसको डालते हैं, कैसे डालते हैं वो समझाऊंगा, क्योंकि हमने societies को स्टडी करके उससे पॉलिटिक्स रिलेट की है, इकोनॉमी को स्टडी करके पॉलिटिक्स रिलेट की है, तो पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी. ठीक है, अभी के लिए एट द वेरी वेरी सिंपल लेवल दिस इज व्हाट द आइडिया इज. नाउ इफ आई लुक एट हियर, साथ साथ करते हैं, तो यहां पर पॉलिटिक्स और इकोनॉमिक्स एंड यहां पर पॉलिटिक्स और सोसाइटी. So political sociology approach is going to study a lot of things which happen in the society. तो जब भी हम बात करते हैं स्टडीज ऑफ लेट्स से प्रेशर ग्रुप्स और पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, so are pressure groups working in the society? Obviously. Are political parties working in the society? Yes, they are working in the society. How? Because political parties are also nothing but group of people who are just saying that we'll sit and we'll make policy in the state. That is what a political party essentially is. And ये प्रेशर ग्रुप्स हैं, ये पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं, सोशल मूवमेंट्स हैं, कहां पे हो रहा है सारा कुछ? ये सब सोसाइटी के अंदर हो रहा है. कास्ट, रिलीजन, एथनिसिटी, लैंग्वेज बेस्ड mobilizations or the issues associated with ascriptive identity markers, they are all a part of our let's say societal institutions and societal dynamics. How they impact politics. So what do we study in comparative politics? We study pressure groups, political parties, and that's the topic which we are going to study over a period of time, and social movements. And in the paper 1 IGP portion, we study the role of caste, religion, ethnicity, societal metrics impacting policy, such that finally pressure groups are saying we want to influence the policy. Political parties are saying we will make the policy. Both are at the end of the day working out of society to either pressurize the state or to create a policy by sitting in the state. Social movements are saying we are not happy with the work of political parties, so we are going to make a pressure of ourselves. And this is generally a spontaneous activity which has come up, although it may be sustained and it may demand reforms from the perspective of certain groups. For example, social movements of women, social movements for environment protection, social movements of Dalits, human rights movement, all are social movements. Political sociology at play. Okay. Here, if I talk about political economy, what is at play? If I talk about economics, classical economics from the liberal point of view, Adam Smith, David Ricardo, they are talking about a laissez-faire state. Or later on, we have John Maynard Keynes, who is talking about the welfare state or the government intervention in order to boost the aggregate demand. This is from the liberal school, and they are talking about how the economy and its relationship to the state should be, whereby either the relationship should be laissez-faire, where the state should not regulate economy and it should let the invisible hand do its work, basically the idea of free market economy, or it should be a welfare state whereby it will come in the economy and it will do interventions in the economy. What are you saying? You are talking about economics and its relationship with the state. How the state should influence economy, or how, later on we'll see here, how the economics influences the institution of state. How this will happen? Yahan par kaun aayega? Marxists aayenge. So, Karl Marx will come and he'll say, the base is the economic base. Base है कहां पर? सोसाइटी में है, तो यहां भी आ सकता है. हम कार्ल मार्क्स की एनालिसिस को पॉलिटिकल सोशियोलॉजी अप्रोच में भी पढ़ सकते हैं, बट द बेस इज दैट ऑफ इकोनॉमी, एंड एट द एंड ऑफ द डे इट इज द इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर एंड द मीन्स, द मोड, द फैक्टर्स, the relations of production They are the ones who are impacting the entire superstructure, and therefore this is what you need to study, and this is through where you will get to know why the state is making such and such kind of policy. तो मैं देखता हूं इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर में कौन है, पूंजीवादी बैठे हैं, पूंजीवादियों के अकॉर्डिंग ही स्टेट जो है वो अपना पॉलिसी बनाती है। तो मुझे दिख रहा है कि जो स्टेट है दैट इज इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय द इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द सोसाइटी. That's how economic structure and more importantly the haves, they are influencing the institution of state and its policies. ठीक है. So problem with political economy approach, as we know, the same idea which we discussed with respect to the Marxists, कि इनकी problem क्या है, हर चीज ही economic base पर ले जाएंगे. So it is economically, the idea is that it practices economic reductionism, and that's the criticism. Political sociology approach. Here the basic idea is that when we look at our framework, and in our framework, if you remember, the study of state is where political science deals with. The interaction of society with state is where political sociology deals with. But I cannot have a situation whereby my state, its institutions, the workings, the formal procedures, they take such a position whereby they nearly become irrelevant and the entire study revolves around this. For example, we have done in the role of caste that there is politicization of caste. We have also done that there is casteization of politics. Meaning, if society is impacting politics, then politics is also impacting institutions in society. And this we did when we discussed how the role of caste has changed. Earlier, the role of caste was more from the perspective of its ritual significance and its association with your social status. But now the role of caste is more secular in nature, and caste identity and caste manifestations and caste consciousness is largely for the political purpose. So my institution of caste has changed because of the democratic politics. Meaning, if society impacts politics, then politics is also impacting society, and we can't give too much emphasis to all of this impacting my politics. I cannot subjugate my study of state to the study of sociology, and that is what the political sociology approach tried to do. It became a very, very important approach after the 1960s, and a lot of work was done. And because of this, what started happening was every aspect of politics was thought to be influenced by the society only. And that is a wrong understanding, because इसके साथ साथ हम ये भी पढ़ रहे हैं कि अकेली सोसाइटी थोड़ा ना, इकोनॉमी भी इम्पैक्ट करती है पॉलिटिक्स को. But the major emphasis of the comparative politics was on political sociology approach, and there were a lot of works which were done, and they're very relevant also. They help us understand why revolutions happen. They help us understand why social movements are coming up. They help us understand the nature of social movements, the nature of political parties, and the nature of pressure groups in the developed versus the developing country. But irrespective of that, it is not an approach which is by itself sufficient to tell us the truth. I'll have to add another approach to it. Maybe add multiple approaches to understand the reality of political behavior and political action. तो इसके लिए क्या करते हैं, ये भी अप्रोच है. फिर हमने पहले बात की, अच्छा कल्चर भी तो हमें बताता है काफी चीजें, कि तुम्हारा पॉलिटिकल कल्चर कैसा है वहां के देश का, उस देश का, और वो किस तरीके से पॉलिटिक्स को इम्पैक्ट कर रहा है, ये भी तो समझना चाहिए. तो मोस्ट ऑफ थिंग्स आर देयर व्हिच इम्पैक्ट. एंड यहाँ पर क्या हुआ, फिर 1980s के आसपास ये बात की गई दैट लेट्स स्टॉप टू मच एम्फेसिस of political sociology approach and too much inclusion of societal factors into politics. देखो पॉलिटिक्स में बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, फंक्शनिंग ऑफ एग्जीक्यूटिव, लेजिस्लेचर, जुडिशरी यहाँ पर है, क्योंकि पॉलिटिक्स में स्टेट है, प्राइमरली स्टेट है. उसके अलावा डेफिनेटली ये सब भी मैटर करेगा, कास्ट इक्वेशन, रिलीजियस इक्वेशन, जिससे स्टेट की पॉलिसी बनेगी, फार्मर्स का प्रेशर ग्रुप है, इंडिया में फार्मिंग की इंपॉर्टेंस है एक, जिसके कारण से एमएसपी की रिजीम है, सब्सिडीज की रिजीम है, मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंटली सीन इन द स्टेट ऑफ पंजाब, जहां पर आपको ये बहुत प्रोमिनेंटली दिखता है। तो मेरे पास ये सब चीजें एग्जिस्ट तो कर रही हैं, ऑल दीज थिंग्स, एंड मुझे दिख भी रहा है सोसाइटी किस तरीके से हेवीली इम्पैक्ट कर रही है। बट एट द सेम टाइम, नॉट the state is also going to come up with some things by themselves and the society will have to adapt. Okay, और सोसाइटी फिर उस तरीके से चलेगी, तो सोसाइटी इंपैक्ट हो जाएगी। सोसाइटी इंपैक्ट नहीं कर रही, सोसाइटी इंपैक्ट हो जाएगी। तो बेस्ट एग्जांपल कास्ट वाला ही है। तो इसकी अपनी स्टडी भी करना, स्टेट के अपने इंस्टीट्यूशंस में क्या चल रहा है, लॉ कैसे बनाया जा रहा है, ब्यूरोक्रेसी का कैसे काम है, तो वहां पर जो काम हो रहे हैं उनका क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है, तो उसको आप बिल्कुल भी छोड़ मत दीजिए। एंड इन दैट कॉन्टेक्स्ट the 1980s onwards, the emphasis back on institutions was done. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा था, जैसे ही मैं ये पढ़ाई करने गया तब मैं इनफॉर्मल वाली जगह चला गया। रिमेंबर ट्रेडिशनल अप्रोचेस का एक क्रिटिसिज्म था दैट ट्रेडिशनल अप्रोचेस बहुत ज्यादा फॉर्मलिस्टिक हैं, सिर्फ इंस्टीट्यूशंस की पढ़ाई करती हैं। अब यहाँ मैं आया तो मैंने सब इनफॉर्मल पढ़ाई स्टार्ट की। अब ये इंस्टीट्यूशंस तो ऐसा सच है नहीं, हमने तो ये भी बात की थी कई बार, प्रेशर ग्रुप्स वाला काम तो प्रेशर ग्रुप्स जो हैं वो हर जगह तो प्रॉपरली डेवलप भी नहीं है, कहीं पर चाइना में तो प्रेशर ग्रुप्स ऐसे एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं कर रहे हैं। तो मैंने पढ़ाई स्टार्ट की, मैंने देखा कंपैरिजन करके, और मुझे समझ आया दैट ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर आल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट, द इनफॉर्मल फैक्टर्स और द नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज्ड फैक्टर्स। बट बाय 1980s मुझे ये समझ आया कि मैं सिर्फ इन्हीं की पढ़ाई किए जा रहा हूँ, मुझे इंस्टीट्यूशंस को कुछ तो इंपॉर्टेंस देनी पड़ेगी, क्योंकि दे इम्पैक्ट। बेस्ट एग्जांपल वाज कास्ट के इंस्टीट्यूशन को इम्पैक्ट कर दिया, तो एक सोसाइटी का इंस्टीट्यूशन इम्पैक्ट हो गया बाय द पॉलिसीज ऑफ द स्टेट, एंड दैट वाज सिंपली बिकॉज ऑफ डेमोक्रेटिक पॉलिटिक्स। तो वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट कि ये गलत है या ये सही है, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द फैक्ट कि इट इम्पैक्ट्स। मैं तो स्टडी कर रहा हूँ, डिस्पैशनेट स्टडी कर रहा हूँ। तो यहां क्या हुआ, इसके कारण कहाँ थे हम, हाँ, तो कहा वापस आ जाऊं, एंड यहां पर एक बहुत फेमस कोट है, ब्रिंग द स्टेट बैक इन, थेडास्कोपोल का ये कोट है, ब्रिंग द स्टेट बैक इन। ओके, द आइडिया वाज स्टेट की एनालिसिस को वापस पिक्चर में लाओ, एंड स्टेट को प्राइमरी बनाओ, एंड सोसाइटी और उसके फैक्टर्स को सेकेंडरी बनाओ। उल्टा होने लग गया था, एंड यहां से फिर एक और फर्दर न्यू अप्रोच स्टार्ट हो जाती है, जिसको बोला जाता है न्यू इंस्टीट्यूशनलिज्म और न्यू इंस्टीट्यूशनलिज्म। ओके, मोर ऑन दिस लेटर ऑन। एज सच ये अप्रोच हमारे सिलेबस में तो नहीं है। तो ये हमारा पॉलिटिकल सोशियोलॉजी खत्म हुआ। वापिस एक बार पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी पे आते हैं। हमने बात की है हाउ इकोनॉमिक्स इज इम्पैक्टिंग पॉलिटिक्स एंड गेटिंग इम्पैक्टेड बाय पॉलिटिक्स। तो या तो लार्जेस्ट फेयर स्टेट बना दो या वेलफेयर स्टेट बना दो, इन्होंने आकर बताया। फिर मार्क्सिस्ट्स लाइक कार्ल मार्क्स, इन्होंने आकर बताया हाउ द इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर इम्पैक्ट्स द स्टेट एंड इट्स पॉलिसीज। देन in the postmodern times we have the dependency school, which talks about the core periphery framework to understand the relations between the state and the economics. We also have the concept of overdeveloped state by Hamza Alavi, where there is a inclusion of economic factors. Although ये सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक नहीं है, बट क्योंकि relative autonomy approach है, so in Marxism we have two approaches to study the state, the instrumentalist approach and the relative autonomy approach. So this overdeveloped state concept, the relative autonomy approach, इसके थ्रू हम कह रहे हैं कि ठीक है, क्या है ये दोनों, सॉरी, इसके थ्रू भी हमें स्टेट की वर्किंग समझ आती है कि वो रिलेटिवली ऑटोनोमस है, ओवरडेवलप्ड स्टेट, हमजा अलावीज कॉन्सेप्ट। ये मार्क्सिस्ट व्यू पॉइंट है पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी का। ठीक है, यहां पे हमने क्रिटिसिज्म किया टू मच फोकस ऑन सोसाइटल फैक्टर्स, जहां हमने criticism किया that they are largely reductionist in their orientation. That's it. इतना ही है बस. तो ये हमारी पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी और पॉलिटिकल सोशियोलॉजी अप्रोच हो गई. ठीक है. नाउ वी आर लेफ्ट विद द डिक्टेशन पार्ट ऑफ challenges, then for political sociology and political economy, and then I would want to move towards some new approaches, but that part we'll do tomorrow. So today's lecture only till this point. ठीक है. और